I think I love this marketing approach of ICAR. This is amazing. You know, you'll be surprised. Recently, ICAR granted 8 scholarships from MS students to come over to Cornell and pursue their dual degree program, and 2 of the PhD students. So internationalization of education is consistent with internationalization of the whole industry, you know, and markets here. Given that, I think we also need to internationalize the faculty engagement process, right? I mean, back and forth, because our students will always go past, and speed will kind of knock the faculty off. So I'd like Max to comment about, you know, how universities such as Cornell could address it, you know, basically the engagement process.
Yes. So I guess I could talk about the engagement at a couple different levels. And I want to come back to some of the comments that have been made about kind of understanding the needs of industry and so forth. And so I want to come back to talking a little bit about extension as part of the education process. But I'll come back to that just in a moment. But to address to the point that you raised directly, Vijay, and in terms of how we're approaching this, is we're interested in finding opportunities for our students to go to other settings, to other countries. So we're very interested in providing opportunities, for example, of students learning in India or in places in Africa, for example. So they get direct field experience. They get experience that could be in industry, could be working with farmers, and just a general cultural awareness. But at the same time, we're very interested in having students come into our setting, and so this is why both the arrangement with ICAR, with Tamil Nadu Agricultural University, where we have in both cases we have students coming over. We're very excited about this because the students bring a great deal to our students. There's a great deal of learning that goes on in the classroom between students, so that's one approach to internationalization. A field course that we run every year in Mexico and also here in India brings in the case of India, brings the Indian students together with the American students. I'll tell you, that's the best learning experience that you could imagine. I think another aspect of this is that we're interested in providing the students with direct experience in the field. And so I think the idea that there might be internships, this is where the linkage with industry, I think, is very good and very important. And then I guess there's also the possibility of kind of experiential learning in that kind of a setting as well. And that's, I think, ICAR and state agricultural universities, and we all share that idea of providing students with richer experiences in all of this. I guess one thing that I'm kind of interested in, if I can just expand the discussion just a little bit, is how we think about agricultural education and extension. And you know, extension has been an important part of our discussions as agricultural educators. That is the sense that you're providing education beyond the classroom, right, in a certain way. And I wanted to just comment on this a little bit. I mean, maybe it goes back to the low mango production example. I think there's a couple of things that we think about in terms of education, extension, is the dissemination of knowledge that's created at the university. That's a traditional thing we think about, but I think we forget about the two-way interaction. Because one of the things about having our educators engaged in the field is that it's an opportunity for learning. It's an opportunity for learning about the needs out there in the field. And you know, historically, and I think this is the challenge for agricultural universities, historically our stakeholders have been farmers, right? And so we've been narrowly focused on farmers. But I want to suggest that, you know, in the changing environment, the farmers are changing, and also the stakeholders are changing. Well, you know, why are we not talking about extension to industry, for example, right? And having an ongoing bridge. The students might be involved in there, the curriculum might be involved, but also the whole educational institution in some way, so that there's an ongoing process of learning. This is how we learn about the needs of our stakeholders, formulate research programs to generate new knowledge that might be helpful, and then also disseminate that knowledge. I think that's really important. So that there's the issue of kind of understanding the changing stakeholder base. That said, I think one of the big challenges we have is also to move to start to think about new ways to engage in extension. Not only do we have to engage new stakeholders, but we also need to engage all stakeholders in new ways. And I think there, the challenge is to how do you effectively use communications technologies, new communication technologies, to do that. And certainly, you know, we have some great examples in India. When I was at TNAU last January, we had a very interesting session about the use of cell phones to disseminate information to farmers, up-to-date information, for example, right? And you can imagine this being used with other stakeholder groups as well. So that went a little far beyond where you wanted to go, but...
no, I think they're very appropriate. That's what I would like to put the ball to BB Singh. You know, Tata Kisan Sansas now, they've been a pioneer in the emerging economies, to really link themselves to farmer, and they also aggregated enormous technologies from both academia in India and externally. Because so BP, I would like to address a couple of things. One is your own perspectives about the human resource needs, as Asim talked about, from the input sector perspective, and also the extension component, your engagement in this process, and the relevance of the institutional framework there.
Good afternoon. We are in business of fertilizer, pesticide and seed, and we have been distributing this in the whole of north and east of India. I think education and extension, they have reached to the critical stage as far as growth of agriculture is concerned, and I'll explain how. And at the same time, we have our own view that it is a time where there is a much needed shift in the education and extension which has to happen in Indian agriculture. And when I am talking this, it's not a concept because I am not an expert in education. We work with the farmers and our learning is what farmer demands. So I'll be talking from that end, not as an expert. And the approach to education and extension needs a shift. I'll explain why. There are two major concerns in Indian agriculture which is actually bothering the farmers of India. One is the rising cost of input. In fact, in the last 7 months, the fertilizer cost has risen 300% in India. Seed cost has also risen. At the same time, output prices like potato is selling for free, and paddy is down to almost 50% than what it was last year. And also good thing is that we have record food grade production. We don't have place to store. So these are the realities of agriculture. The second most important point in Indian agriculture, which is bothering Indian farmers' mind, is the shortage of labor in agriculture. But these are the two things: rising cost of inputs, shortage of labor in agriculture. These are two things which are affecting growth in agriculture in India. Now, our experience has been that these two things can be resolved, or a solution can be found only through the mechanization. Because as the input cost increases, you need to have judicious use of inputs. You can't waste the inputs, because yesterday we could afford, now you can't. The prices have gone 300%. So you can't afford to misuse or use the inputs the way you were using yesterday. So it has to be mechanized, and therefore and shortage of labor also calls for mechanization. So mechanization of the farm is something which is imminent in Indian agriculture, and it is started showing the symptoms and it's started happening. Now the biggest challenge which we are facing, because we as a input distributor in the country, we have been trying with this idea that if mechanization is one piece which is going to grow and grow very fast, why not get into this business? After all, we are business community, and who can do better than Tata? So we got into it. We in fact got some machines, not some machines but many machines, and but the problem we face that there is no skill available. Now if you buy a combined harvester, you need a driver from Punjab to come to UP. That's the reality. And those drivers will come at their own terms. And those terms will make the whole business around the machine, non-viable. And this I am talking with the experience. And we invested in machines, and then we had to call the drivers from there. So, not getting anywhere. So what we started is that we developed a concept, and which we call as agriculture needs experts, agriculture needs practitioners, and agriculture needs technicians. And today our universities are producing only experts. They don't produce practitioners, they don't produce technicians. And in India, there is no school, there is no university which produces practitioners and technicians. When I say practitioner, what I am meaning is those people who can handhold the farmer, train them. At times, if needed, do the operation themselves. It's like, compounder sitting outside the doctor's chamber. Technicians are those who will do the operation all the time in the field. So in fact, they are the service provider. They come, deliver the service, go back. So then, the experience has been that this year, in the month of September, we started the first course, a certification course for farm technician.